So, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My pleasure to have all of you with us. We are having this show coming right on the heels of a major announcement a few minutes ago. And the question is the announcement was made by Associated Press, CNN, and other news carriers that Vice President Biden will be the new president-elect. We have an incredible panel for you. As always, every week we try to keep it a balanced panel of people who have multiple perspectives. So, with that, let me introduce our panel. Um, just for the panelists, we do this show. We've been doing it especially during the election time. It's carried in Facebook Live, YouTube with all our members. It gets out. So it gets a lot of good traction. And obviously, it would be great if all of you can also, after the broadcast, forward it to your Facebook and other channels. So with that, let me introduce our panelists, Swati Dandekar,
Hello.
who's been uh, state regulator, has been a member of the State House, a state senator, also an ambassador to the Asian Development Bank. He is one of the, I would say, the earliest Indian Americans who was holding elected office. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to have her with us from Iowa, from the great state of Iowa.
Yes.
We also have Steve Rao. He's been a councilman, mayor pro tem, a business leader from another great state, which was a battleground state of North Carolina. Again, he was the first elected Asian American in the state of North Carolina. And we are really thrilled to have you, Steve. And then we have Mr. Farook Sait, who's been for 40 years at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, also the head of PayPac, which was really established to promote federal workers of Asian origin in the federal government. And he's been a commentator, a TV host, and an analyst. We are really lucky to have you here, Farouk ji, with us. And then finally, we have Hemant Bhatt. Hemant has a very, very interesting background, and I'll just say a few things, and maybe he can introduce himself. He says he's President Trump's most ardent fan in the United States, and he obviously is originally from Gujarat, and he runs the Trump My President portal, and is also founder of Hindus for Trump, an America winning coalition campaign, and has played a key role in organizing Gujarat Chalo and Chalo India event, and founded the South Asian Republican Coalition. So with all of that, we're going to try to get everybody in the discussion. So please, if we can have comments that give other people a choice, that's the whole perspective. So I would like to get some quick comments from each of you, starting with Swati, about the news that has just come out in terms of the next president will be Vice President Biden. It took us a few days for this. So your perspective on the Biden presidency, and then the other thing was it was predicted to be a blowout, whether it was in the presidency, whether it was in the Senate or the House. And this is the second time the pollsters have got it completely wrong. So what should the public do? Stop believing in the pollsters, and pollsters make a lot of money. So some of you are established political leaders who have run campaigns like Steve and Swati. So both those opinions. Starting with you, Swati, then we'll go with Farouk ji, Steve, and Hemant.
Oh, thank you, Sanjay. First and foremost, I do want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden as our next president of the United States. I worked very, very hard to make sure that he is the next president of the United States. I made phone calls to Georgia and to Texas. And to me, it was, as a Democrat, very important to have somebody who would unite this country. For President-elect Biden, I know that he is very similar to me. He will get along well with Republicans and Democrats. He will definitely unite our country. And to me, that is very, very important. He will respect countries all around the world. He will respect India. He will respect Europe. He will respect Asia. He is just a kind of a leader that we truly needed at this time in our country. And I'm very happy that he is our next president. Polling, it really depends. I mean, how the pollster do it. Sometimes some polling makes lots of sense, and some polling does not. So it all. Do you want me to give it to somebody else, Sanjay? It's okay.
No, that's good. Thank you, Swati. Farouk
I came to this country in 1963. So my first exposure to an American election was in 1964 with an absolute blowout of the Republican Party. And I've seen successive administrations of both stripes. But for the past 12 to 16 years, the divide in this country has troubled me greatly. It has become far too tribal. If you say I'm a Democrat, the other side paints you as unpatriotic. If you say I'm a Republican, the other side paints you as a racist. That's not America. And I think it is good to have a measured, calming influence in the White House. So I'm very pleased to have former Vice President Biden, now the president-elect, and I think that it'll be a calming influence for this country.
Question about the polls. Did you have any comment on how the polls are so wrong?
In my communication with you, I was skeptical about polls. I've always been a little skeptical in terms of assessments because I'm not sure that they measure appropriately. Let's take, for instance, just the Indian American community. I'm not sure that people really know how to measure us in this matter. And so I take that now with a grain of salt because we don't have the homogeneity in this country that used to exist. So I don't know how they're going to do what they're going to do in terms of changing those things, but certainly it has to be a wake-up call, especially following from 2016. It seems like they haven't learned much.
Yeah, thank you for this, Steve.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here with everyone today, and Ambassador and everybody. It's on Sanjay. And well, first of all, I just want to give congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden, who will now be the 46th President of the United States. And also a special congratulations to Kamala Harris. For those of us who have children and grandchildren, to have the first Black woman and Indian American woman now to serve in the second highest office of the land, I think will change our country forever. So a heartfelt congratulations. I think I want to follow up on what Farook said. I mean, I could get into the details about what a Biden presidency will be, and we could talk about that in a few minutes. I think it's about healing. My favorite words in the Pledge of Allegiance are "One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." And when I say that to myself sometimes before a council meeting, you really wonder, as Farook said, are we indivisible? We've been so divided. And I can't think of a better person to heal this country than Joe Biden, who in North Carolina, when he spoke a few weeks ago, he really moved me when he said that America could be defined in one word: possibilities. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, what your religion is, to bring us together and build bridges. And I think the election shows that he was able to build a blue wall and do that. And my late father-in-law was a U.S. Air Force colonel. My mother-in-law is still alive. And he was inspired to come to America before he went into the U.S. Air Force because he saw a man walk on the moon when Kennedy was president. And so I'm hoping that this can inspire the world that America can't come together. But he has a hard work to do in terms of governing, and we wish him all the best. In terms of polling, I will say I'm a real skeptic. I got to be honest with you. I'll just give you a quick statement about North Carolina. Our governor won, Roy Cooper, with a good mandate, about 200,000 vote margin. But we were supposed to win the House of Delegates and the state Senate. We lost seats in both, and so now the Republicans will be drawing the new districts, which will take power for many, many years. We have a new Republican lieutenant governor, even more conservative than the one we had before. So Governor Cooper is going in now to the new General Assembly in a state that went to Donald Trump, that carried the Senate and House with him, with the Republican lieutenant governor, and we also lost the Supreme Court. But all the polls said that the opposite would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that moving forward, we've got to figure out where the data is coming from, because data is the fuel of the new economy. A lot of us are in IT industry. And how can we use analytics and data to get a better sense of what's going on? Because simply it just didn't happen this time. And I've gone over my time, but that's my answer to your question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Obviously, Ronnie also lost, and that's a separate conversation which we should have later on.
Yeah.
But I'll come to get Hemant's comment. Hemant, obviously, you heard the news about the announcement of President-elect Biden. Your perspective on the elections and obviously on the polls. Hemant, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Are you able to hear now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay ji, for having me, and thank you, USINPAC, for this wonderful interactions about the political scenarios going on in this country. And let me start with this: that this election is not yet over, and no conclusion has to be drawn so hardly. And there are a lot of things going on from the Trump campaign and other places, that it is very difficult to come to a conclusion that this election is over. However, if this election is like what I heard about the Joe Biden's, he's going to be the next president of US. If that becomes reality, I congratulate him, and I expect him to do what the American people are expecting him to do. That is number one. And number two is if you look at the current election, first of all, I'm not able to understand. Of course, because of the Chinese virus, this election was slated for the mail-in ballots, kind of, which is a third world country. Normally, in advanced country like America, I have never seen that even in India and other places, the elections are always held by the machine and other things. And first time, I think, in the history of America that we have gone by the mail-in ballots, and that is, there are so many irregularities are coming out. And according to me, this election is not far from over. And having said that, we have to wait until December 14, where the electoral cast the vote. And many channels and many media people have already announced that he is president. We do not accept it as of now. But as I said, if it becomes reality in time to come, we wish all the best and congratulate Joe Biden for his presidency. He has a lot of challenges to face. It's not easy, because this country has passed through tremendous kind of problems in past. President Trump has been able to achieve what he promised, and he did wonderful job for this country, like the employment and the immigration and the economics, and everything was really going so great. And I hope he again become the president of this country and continue the unfinished job. Now, number two is, as far as the pollsters are concerned, this is like a nightmare for all American people. The pollsters are mostly biased. They were addressing the target, which is pro-Biden. they were addressing the audience which is pro-democratic, and they were never addressing the silent majority of America. They were never addressing the side Trump supporters, and that is why there were differences of 17 point and 12 points and all that. Now, what has happened here is that the people who were reading this poll, which they have spent a lot of money for that, and according to me they have to be held accountable to misguide American people. Because if I, as a common American, if I come to know that Joe Biden is 17 point ahead and President Trump is likely to lose, I will not go out and vote. So that has impacted the transparency of the the American people, and that has misguided American people, and they should be held accountable as more as possible, and they have to definitely learn the lesson. Because that the same thing happened in 2016 when Hillary was shown as a victory, and CNN declared her as a president about 9 o'clock, and then the entire things were turned out differently. So these are my views for this, and I will tell you that lot of challenges are ahead. America is passing through a tremendous kind of transformation at this point of time. We all have to come back and retrospect ourselves what needed to be done so that this country become united and we can go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemant. So, if you follow Hemant's point, Swati, when you look at what's happened, and Farouk ji kind of alluded to this, that we are a divided country, really. If you, break it down, even across states, across coasts, etc. Farouk said, healing is necessary. Now, also politically, depends obviously how Georgia goes. We talked before the show. Let's just say if the Republicans hold the Senate and we have a president-elect Biden, we're still going to see gridlock. We have a country that's divided, and then we'll have a political infrastructure that's divided. I mean, the microcosm of that Steve pointed out is in North Carolina, a Democratic governor, a Republican Senate, and a House and a lieutenant governor. So what do you see in terms of, because we still face a lot of important issues, whether it's the economy, the coronavirus, racial justice, I mean, immigration, all those things, they need to be tackled. How do you see the future of that, Swati, moving forward?
I forgot. Sorry. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Sanjay. I agree with Farouk. I really think that our leaders need to start working together. I feel, and that's how I was always. I worked with Republicans and I worked with Democrats. It is very important for us to understand that we are representing the citizens of our state or citizens of our country, and the citizens need to demand that from their leaders, like Steve and like me, or like President elect Joe Biden. And same thing with the Senate. The citizens need to say to their leaders, whether they are Republican or Democrats, please make sure that you are working for us. We are your bosses. This is not what Joe Biden says. This is not a Republican issue, and this is not a Democratic issue. If it's COVID doesn't see whether you are Republican, Democrat, or independent. We all have to do what is right for our country. And to me, I think it is the citizens and the leaders who have to work together to bring back the country. It is really, and unite our country. And I think it is when I was in Iowa House and in Iowa Senate, Sanjay, that I had Speaker of the House who was Republican, but he was very kind to me and I was kind to him. We were sushi buddies. Every Wednesday, Speaker Rance and I and a few other people, we used to go and have sushi together. And I think it's time for us to start doing those kind of things where you start talking about your families when you know each other. Like Speaker Rance really is about 15 years younger than I am. But I knew that his daughters were 4 years old, 5 years old. He knew that my sons were getting married. I invited him when Govind got married in India. Those kind of things should happen again. When you know each other as a family member, it makes a huge difference. And I think it's time for us to start looking at each other as human beings who have families, who care for each other, and who care whether they're Republican or Democrat, they care for their country.
Sanjay, I would like to respond to Swati. Swati ji, I really respect you so much. You are really a very proven leader. Look at what happened in the Trump's presidency all these 4 years. He was a democratically elected president of this country, and the Democrats have started from day one to unseat him from the presidency of the United States of America. And they have brought so many charges and so many things which has not been proven at the end of the day. And see, this is always good to talk about unity and coming together, but that has never happened from the Democratic side during the last 4 years of the President United States of America. Number two, the Democrats criticized President Trump for the response to the Chinese virus, but they have never been able to help him how to solve this problem, what to do. They have never come out with any better kind of suggestions or to help the country. They were all the time engaged in criticizing President Trump for his response. And number three is President Trump got more votes than what he got in 2016. He has entered the arena of Latinos, South Asians, and he has black community, and a lot of people have voted for him. So it is very difficult to undermine his presidency. And when he is going to be influential forever. I mean, according to me, he is going to be in the even the supposedly the presidency of Joe Biden. He is going to be there. He is going nowhere. So let me tell you very honestly, the Democrats have miserably failed to come back to bring the country together. They have allowed the American people for lawlessness of law and order situation. They have supported the riots and everything, and they were never able to tell the people, calm down. This is not the time to, because that has really divided the country. So these are my 2 cents here.
Yeah. So this proves my point that we have a country that's kind of divided with its viewpoints. There is 2 different viewpoints, and I think the one thing to look at it is that this is a great country that allows many different viewpoints to persist in a peaceful, democratic manner. 90% of the countries you couldn't have a conversation like this. Steve, if I may just switch topics a little bit. All the members, so to speak, of the Samosa caucus, the Indian Americans in the House, were elected. But we saw some candidates also who did not win, whether it was Sri Kulkarni in Texas and in Arizona, Sarah Gideon and others. And also in your state, Ronnie did make it. What do you see from what has happened now? And you're a young person who has aspirations for elections. What do you see the prospects of candidates of someone like you? And I'm still hoping that there is a political run for Swati and others out there that are thinking of that.
Well, I think first of all, Ronnie Chatterjee has been a longtime friend of mine, and I think he was one of the most qualified candidates in the history of our state to run. But I think part of the challenge is that I don't know about Kulkarni's race. I can just talk about my own home state. I think the challenge is getting a message out that's appealing to rural areas, and I think that I haven't spoken to Dr. Chatterjee yet, but the bottom line is President Trump came to North Carolina 11 times, and they weren't complying with the COVID restrictions, but many people were coming out. Whereas the Democratic Party here, Ryan, I went to a lot of Zoom calls, but you can't win an election on a Zoom call. You're going to win North Carolina by going to a coffee house, going to a diner. Like Robert C. Byrd, a former U.S. Senator, told me he did all his politics in the diners in West Virginia, where the waitresses would know all the politics, they would know all the gossip, and he would learn from that, and he would go fiddle his way up to the U.S. Senate as one of the longest serving U.S. senators in history of the country. So I think that's the bottom line, is that we tend to raise a lot of money and do well in urban areas, but our Indian American Samosa caucus also has to go talk to the rural areas. Now, Swati is from a rural state. And so that's, to answer your question, I think affordable healthcare and Medicaid access and these kinds of things sell well on the Democratic Party slate. But in rural North Carolina, I think they want to be talking about roads, infrastructure, and let's not forget jobs. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's one issue that we can all agree upon. Hemant, me, you, all of us, that America needs more jobs, and because of the automation. And how are we going to come up with strategies that are investing in skills so that we have new jobs in disruptive areas like artificial intelligence, robotics, sensors, those kinds of things. And President Obama created 800 million jobs in his administration. Under this administration, in 36 months, it was 633 million. So I think the American people in the middle of a pandemic, wanted change. But, to answer your question, finally, I'll just say that I think that's the challenge, is that our Samosa caucus needs to reach out with a rural message in these areas. I know Raja Krishnamurthy won, right? He's in a more urban area, right? So There you go. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that that's a pretty good indicator. I'll have a follow-on question about the 2024 election, but I'll come to Farookji. Farookji, one of the big issues for this presidency among the Indian American community was Vice President Biden, now President-elect Biden's and Kamala Harris's views about India, Kashmir, etc. That had divided the community, at least for the first generation. How do you see U.S.-India relations with this new administration, with Vice President, now President-elect Biden? It's been a few minutes, but and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris moving forward, because there is that big issue that's been, hanging out there.
India has always been a country that has been viewed favorably in this country in the business sector and in the academic sector. That has been a historic plus for us. But as things have been developing on the international stage with the dynamics of Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, India has taken on a more important role for America. There are two countries that view now India's position as a vital ally for their own benefit. Israel views India as a strong ally because Pakistan, which is a nuclear power, is an existential threat as far as Israel is concerned if it helps a Islamic bomb anywhere in the Middle East. And for the United States, belatedly, it has woken up to the fact that India sits south of a huge nuclear monster, China, and it behooves us to form an alliance with India. That's not going to change regardless of who's in the White House. The strengthening of the partnership between the United States and India is just going to continue to increase.
So that's good to hear, Farookji, from that perspective. Hemant, you have alluded to some of the legal challenges that the Trump administration's looking at putting. Do you see there is a scope for something like that, or do you think the time for healing has come for this country?
Yeah, let me respond to Farookji what he said. First of all, that Democrats in America, they have intervened in the internal affairs of India several times during the presidency of Trump. And President Trump supported the abolition of Article 370 from the Indian Constitution, which was a big win. President Trump has stood by the China aggression, stood by India during the China aggression. The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, went to India, executed a defense agreement, and that is to share the satellite data if in case China invades India. Number three is President Trump substantially reduced the financial aid to neighboring country Pakistan, which was exporting the tremendous radical Islamic terrorism to our country. And after President Trump took over, I think the terrorism attack in India has been reduced to a great extent. And I'm not aware of any terrorism attack after President Trump took over. So Joe Biden, if he is coming as a president, he has to, because they're I mean even Kamala Harris, the vice president elect, if you say so, she has been openly talking in the public, in the media, that the like the Islamic suppress or some kind of thing. But India is a sovereign country, and let India manage its own affairs. And the Kamala Harris or Jaipal or some people are there who were passing some resolutions in their constituencies about condemning Pakistan, Kashmir issue kind of thing. This should not have done that. That has divided a lot of Indian American people against the Democrats. And hopefully Joe Biden should realize this reality, and he has to understand that supporting China will be a disadvantage to India. And as far as Steve said about the job, the President Trump did excellent work as far as bringing job back to this country. And the Joe Biden has to continue those efforts instead of outsourcing the work as far as our country is concerned. Now, what was your question again? I'm sorry, the second question.
My question was really about the lawsuits.
Yeah.
Do you see that continuing, or do you think it's time to just now say enough is enough and we should now go on the path of healing?
Sanjay, I mean, everybody has a right to take to request the court to decide what should happen, what should not happen. And even me, you, anybody has any kind of grievance or any kind of thing, they will go to the court and look for the judgment or look for the remedy. And there are so many irregularities are coming out. And I have a lot of videos. I have a lot of my proof about the irregularities being done for the mail-in ballots. And even Trump campaign has lot of evidence about there are some sting operations done by the Trump campaign, which is coming out big way, which will challenge the Biden's presidency in a big time. Let me tell you that. And as far as the bundles and bundles of mail-in ballots, they were coming after the election day. And the Supreme Court very recently ruled that the ballots which have come after November 3rd should be segregated separately and should be counted separately. So this is going to be a big issue. Michigan, the county clerk has come out and said that there was a computer glitch, and about 6,000 votes which were to be going to the President Trump has gone to the Joe Biden. So that is, and then 60 voting stations have used that software. So that is going to make the elections up. I mean, it will change the results, I think so. And the people, there were duplicate ballots, and there were like ballots were mailed to the late people, and the ballot they were asking. I mean, there is some instances that when the people went to voting, they were asking for the driver's license. A lot of Republican voters have gone back without voting. So these are all coming out very soon, and it is too early to declare Joe Biden as a president. And as I said, in reality, if it happens, I congratulate him. But let us wait and watch. And there are all the irregularities which were there, which were there since number of years coming in. They are all going to come out. And I thank President Trump for opening out all these kind of things, which is really hurting this country. And which, see, the President Trump got 69 million votes, and Joe Biden, according to me, 72 or something. But then in reality, legal votes should be counted, not the votes which are illegal. And if this is happened, this may change the election scenario and election results. And having said that, Sanjay ji, let me tell you one more thing. That the country, as you very rightly said, divided. There are staunch Republican base. There is a staunch Democratic base, but the staunch Republican base is very eager to know why these irregularities have been allowed, in this election, and why the democratic ruled cities and other places was ruling in such a way. In Pennsylvania, they were not allowing the poll watchers inside the counting hall. What does this show? What they wanted to hide. So these are all things were coming out very soon. According to me, President Trump is at the end of the day is going to win this election.
Okay, well, we'll continue to watch. Swati, there is a key election for a runoff coming up in Georgia, which will which will kind of decide who holds the Senate majority. And as you know, that becomes very, very important for confirmations, for judges, for even talking about expanding the Supreme Court, etc. Can you give us some thoughts, because you've done a lot of work in Georgia, as to where do you think the Senate majority is going to be?
Thank you, Sanjay. I haven't had a chance to talk to my friends in Georgia yet on the ground. Like I said, I did make lots of phone calls to Georgia and Texas to make and most of my calls were to Indian Americans and Asian Americans to turn Georgia and Texas blue. I really feel that depending on how things happen, I feel if I have to make a call today that Reverend Warnock, he will win that race because he's ahead in right now, right, Steve? He's ahead in numbers, and he will win that race. This is what I'm saying, and I think Jon Ossoff's race is going to be a tough race for John to win, but he's definitely can win that race. He just will have to. He has been working very hard, but he'll have to work harder because he's running against an incumbent. So it's not easy to get rid of an incumbent, and Steve will tell you that. So that's what I feel that right now, if I have to make the call, I can say that Reverend Warnock will definitely win, but I don't know. I hope I pronounced his last name right, but Jon Ossoff could win. Democrats could win both races. And going to what Steve said, I think that's one state where we talk to rural parts of Georgia. We talk to people who live in rural parts of Georgia. We talk to them. When I say we, that means the Democrats talked about the importance of internet, talked about importance of education.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thank you so much, Swati. Farook, coming to you, what do you think should be the agenda for this new administration? Knowing all the challenges are there, what would be some recommendations that you, with your vast experience, have to, whether it's to heal the country, to the economy, etc.? I mean, what would you suggest some of the things that can be done?
Well, clearly, COVID is looming and mushrooming. That's got to be the prime criteria or priority. Now, before I launch into this, I would like to do a little historical canvas painting. 2008, when Vice President Biden and President Obama got into the office, the stock market was cratering. It had lost more than 50% of its value. And companies were getting ready to fold, banks were getting ready to fold, and unemployment was soaring. So if you look from 2008 to 2016, Vice President Biden's work saved major corporations and companies and banks, brought the stock market back from the cratering of almost to 8,000 to up to almost 18,000 when President Trump took over office. Unemployment was over 12% when they got into the office, and it was around 4 when they left. So this talk about socialism is driving me nuts. You're looking at an individual who has established credentials of saving the economy and major corporations. Number one. So he's going to focus on the economy in the same manner and focus on unemployment in the same manner as they did from 2008 to 2016. Now, you know, there's an old saying, both in our country and over here, by your fruits, you will know them. You don't grow guava on a mango tree. So if you see mangoes on a tree, you know it's a mango tree. So you look at the history of Vice President Biden, and you can't say this man is going to cause a crash in the stock market. His approach is going to be looking at the two monsters that we're facing right now: unemployment, the economy, and the health of this nation. And that's what he's going to focus on.
Farouk, since you brought it up, let me just challenge you a little bit. The Democratic Party, since he was in power in 2008 to whatever time, and now is a little bit of a different Democratic Party.
Yes.
That you have to accept. There is people like AOC and others who are not in Congress, Ilhan Omar and others, the Progressive Caucus, and they are a pretty significant force today. Some people will argue maybe as powerful, if not even more powerful than Speaker Pelosi. AOC has said that she might challenge Chuck Schumer for in the primary for the Senate seat, etc. Now, even during the debates and things like that, once he became the candidate, he has brought in Bernie Sanders, and a lot of them have been on the committees to formulate policies. How do you see those progressive policies? And I'm just asking to understand, where do you see them coming in? And this is a question for Steve and others. And this is something that worries some people, especially people who left. I mean, people talk about why Latinos went more for Trump. One of the things that they are afraid of is socialism, or at least the perception of socialism, because they ran from Cuba, Venezuela, and some of these other countries, from Maduro and other places. So this is just a question to you, Farouk, and then I'll open it to everybody here to get their viewpoints.
You know, the strength of the Democratic Party is its diversity. You notice at the end of the election, one of the things that the Republican leadership and in Fox News, they've been celebrating the fact that there are more women Republican candidates that have won than before. That's the first time for the Republicans that they're focusing on and celebrating a diversity in their wing. They don't have the diversity in the Republican Party that we have in the Democratic Party, which means that we're going to have more of a choir than a barbershop quartet. And therefore, we're going to have to deal with different viewpoints and different needs. Now, if you look at Joe Biden's success, he would not have got the nomination had it not been for the endorsement of John Clyburn and his push in South Carolina. He would not have won the election had it not been for the support of the African American community in the major states that he won. That's a fact. And I don't think anybody can walk away from any discussion in this country that the African Americans in this country are suffering in a variety of ways. The historical legacy of discrimination carries forth in many, many areas. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed. So while we're concerned about law and order, we should also be concerned about what causes the upheaval. Because if you don't do that, you're only looking at the symptoms.
Okay.
Now, so I feel that there will be a robust discussion, but Joe Biden is a very seasoned individual, and he knows how to be temperate. And he will be able to handle this issue very, very well.
Thanks, Steve. The question again is the progressive pull on President-elect Joe Biden, whether it is from Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, the Green New Deal, and all those other things that are part of that. How will that play out? Because that's also weighing heavily on the minds of a lot of Indian Americans
Yeah, and I've heard this.
who left the socialist India to come here for a free market economy.
Well, first of all, I want to answer your question, and I want to throw in just a quick thing because I know we're running short of an hour on what I think are the three fundamental priorities of the president-elect working with the new Congress. But to answer your question, and this has come up in coffee conversations as recently as yesterday, Indian Americans, including some of my own family, who are concerned about too much of the progressivism getting in, rumors out there about Bernie Sanders being the Secretary of Labor, Elizabeth Warren being the Secretary of the Treasury. So I think that this is something that we have to tread with caution. I think progressivism, great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a proud Democrat. And like Farook Ji, I believe that the diversity of our party is its greatest strength. But what Vice President or President-elect Biden has to do now is to make sure that he's building a government that's a coalition. If I were him tonight, when he gets home at 1 a.m, I would read Team of Rivals, which was the great book about Abraham Lincoln when he was leading a very divided nation. And he reached out to his rivals and brought them in the cabinet. So I'm not saying he's going to bring in people from a Trump administration, but I think if you're going to hold the blue wall that we've built in the Midwest, it's very important, I think, that we have a presidential administration that is taking sort of those viewpoints in perspective. So that's what it does concern me. And I think if you look at North Carolina, I think that's what's happened. I think that the progressives are getting through these progressive primaries. And then when they go for a statewide election, they're losing the rural areas of the state. And so this is why the General Assembly and the state Senate and many of the Council of State positions, including, Ronnie Chatterjee losing, others losing that were favored to win. So I think that it's really progressivism is good, but it's how we sell that message. Okay. And so I don't have an answer in terms of what's going to happen, but I think it's something we have to consider. In terms of the priorities that I would focus on in the next few weeks, I would focus on COVID pandemic and working. So hopefully we'll win the U.S. Senate. But I think a pandemic relief bill, a fourth bill that's putting money in the hands of businesses, the 20 million unemployed, stimulus checks, paycheck protection money, resources to cities to deal with the pandemic. Immigration reform, I think, is critical. We have 40,000 Indian Americans in North Carolina waiting on the H-1B. I'm getting calls every day to City Hall, people on H-4s that are paying double the tuition that they would pay in-state because they're H-1B, people living in fear. So we have to deal with illegal immigration, but these skilled immigrants, the dreamers, when you add it all together, they're bringing $20 billion into North Carolina, the ninth largest state in the union. So I think a good comprehensive immigration policy, and of course, healthcare, reducing healthcare costs. So maybe tweaking Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, doing these kinds of things. And the final straw in the hat is, the Supreme Court. And are we going to overturn Roe v. Wade? Is Obamacare going to be upheld? But I think governing and healing and giving the American people some feeling of security in our own country and also security in the world order. Because President Trump broke a lot of deals that we were in, the trade agreements and things like that. But I think, and then the U.S.-India relationship, which I think we've talked about. So I gave you a lot. But to answer your question, progressivism is we got to treat it with kid gloves. And we want to hear them, but in terms of building a government, it might be a tough thing.
No, thanks, Steve. I know Swati has a few points. I just want to acknowledge our viewers. We have a lot of people. Please send in your questions. We have a tremendous panel with many different views, and that's the beauty of our country and the beauty of our community. Swati, did you have some points? Because I have some other questions for you.
Well, yeah, just quickly, even if the progressive have a cabinet position, they still have to do what Farook ji said. They still have to do what President Biden wants to do. And I was ambassador to Asian Development Bank. I had to follow the policy of Obama-Biden And it is important for us to do that. So even if you have a progressive cabinet minister, cabinet position, you still have to do what your president wants you to do.
No, that's a very good perspective. Now, as I said, it's a little too early to even talk about 2024, but there are talks about a Nikki Haley, Kamala Harris kind of an election. Swati, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I really think that we need to me, people like to go ahead and start doing their punditry immediately. It is time for us to give President-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris their due respect. Let them take their oaths. Let's see what they are doing, and I think Nikki Haley is going to look at the whole picture before she decides what needs to be done. And it could be, who knows, it could be Joe Biden deciding that he wants to run again because he has done a great job. So I would not like to be part of a conversation where we have not given them due. I think we have to give due respect to President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
Oh, that's good to know. Hemant, do you have any perspective? And then we'll go into the closing comments in terms of progressive and the progressive agenda within the Democratic Party and the Vice President Biden.
I think you very rightly said Nikki Haley is a very considerate, very wonderful human being, and she has been in the public life for a long time, so she can definitely bet herself for the presidency. And I'm seeing Ted Cruz from the Republican Party, or Donald Trump Jr., or Eric, or Ivanka. They are all ready because they have seen everything what's going on in this country. So, but the Swati ji very rightly said that let's see what happens in the Biden's presidency, and that will decide the future course of action for this country. And as far as the Farook ji said about the stock market, I agree with him. But during the time of Biden and Obama, stock market was so volatile, and this volatility I never seen in the time of President Trump, and that was really very, very good. And 401k, IRS, and I mean the retirement account, they were so rich. And he has done a stimulus package that has helped the small businesses and individuals, the $1,200 check to all the households. So that has helped to help people for the during the Chinese virus crisis. And only last thing is that the progressive agenda can never be implemented in this country. We are a capitalist country. Socialism, we have seen what has happened in Venezuela and other countries. Country cannot afford to have this socialism. If it is the case, this country will die its own death. And capitalism, the country is number one because of the capitalism, and we should continue to have that capitalism. And as far as the Joe Biden's term is concerned, he always said about the lockdown during the Chinese virus. But that lockdown will never help this country. It will generate unemployment. People will be in problem. The economy will be dying down. GDP will not be great. So we have to find a way out how to treat the Chinese virus during this time, at the same time keeping our economy open. So we not only deter the unemployment rates to go high, but we can make our economy great.
Farook, if you travel around this country, as I've had to do recently, there are places where there are people don't believe in face masks and other things, and they believe in keeping the country open. As President-elect Biden, let's just say, assuming that, are we going to open up the economy? As you said, the virus is tackling the health and the economy of the virus is number one. What would be your advice, having worked in the federal government for a long period, in terms of managing the virus, but also keeping the economy open? What are some perspectives that you have?
Now, Let's take, for instance, the federal government, which is the largest employer in the United States. Department of Agriculture has been working from home. United States Department of Agriculture has been working from home since March of this year. And they don't anticipate going back into the offices until June or July of next year. So we have already learned to manage in a different way what we needed to do in the old-fashioned way. And that's what businesses are starting to realize. Restaurants are making accommodations under this system now to do completely different things than what they did before. Necessity is the mother of invention. And the United States is the greatest country in terms of inventing. So we are going to have to come up with new things. I see President Biden focusing on the needs of this country for health, focusing on the needs of this country for employment, focusing on the needs of this country for the economy. And I think he will do what is best and for sure on the issue of health, he's going to rely on the scientists and on the doctors, which is the way it should have been all along.
Thanks. Steve, question to you. I don't know, there's an echo. About the Supreme Court. This current Supreme Court is going to deal with a couple of very important issues coming up. How do you see that playing out compared to now with the President-elect Biden? We have the Obama healthcare, and we also have some challenges to the Roe versus Wade. What are your perspectives on that?
You know, in the first year of law school, they teach you that there's not an issue of right or wrong, but an issue of majority opinion and minority opinion. And if you look through the history of the Supreme Court in the United States, both on the issue of trade, on the issue of federalism, on the issue of civil rights, you have seen the decisions of the Supreme Court nullify previous decisions and move things forward. I don't get bothered with that. The fact that currently now the Supreme Court is leaning conservative. I remember back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, if you drove down 95, you would see great billboards saying, impeach Earl Warren, who was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Those type of things will happen. And every time there are decisions by the Supreme Court that are contrary to the sense of the country, Congress passes a law to nullify it, as you've seen in Ledbetter and so many other cases. Okay, so I don't see, and regardless of them being conservative or not, the rule of law is the rule of law. And that's what the justices will abide by.
So you think there's a system of checks and balances? That's why we have
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Call me an optimist, but I would agree with Farook. I believe the Supreme Court are jurists. And if it was only a political position, you know, let's not forget that Chief Justice John Roberts was the swing vote on gay marriage, a number of other issues. So I think these are jurists. They may have their own their constitutional interpretation of the law. So, you know, Amy Coney Barrett will be on the court. She is now the Supreme Court Justice. And I think Affordable Care Act hearing will be next week. So we have to see what's going to happen with that. I don't think the election is going to be determined by the Supreme Court. But I think moving forward, to answer your question, Sanjay, this president hopefully we're not going to have any more deaths or resignations from the Supreme Court. But if there is another opening, he is going to have to nominate a Supreme Court justice. And I only hope and pray that the U.S. Senate, whether it's Republican or Democrat, will work with him to make sure that we can appoint justices that are fair, that can work with our country and our president and future presidents, because they're going to be in there for a long, long time.
If I may just make a comment over there, Sanjay, in the, I would say pre-15 year, before Bork, the submissions for the Supreme Court Justice to be nominated, recommendations were submitted by the American Bar Association of the top jurists to the administration saying these are the people who have established a track record of absolutely good jurisprudence. Now, You have people who are recommending based on religion, based on non-judicial philosophy. And I think we need to get away from that.
So I'll ask you a question, Farouk, since you've talked about this. Are you for expansion of the Supreme Court?
No, absolutely not. Because, look, who's going to be the president in our eyes, starting in January? Joe Biden, Democrat. Let's say, for instance, both senators from Georgia are elected from my mouth to God's ears, and the Senate is Democratic. And they decide they're going to expand the court. How much? 13? They'll appoint 4 more so that they can nullify the thing. Fine. 4 years, 8 years down the road, Republicans win and have the same similar situation. What are they going to do? They'll expand it from 13 to 70. It's a stupid idea. It's an absolutely stupid idea. Because it's a cyclical thing. Today, 1960s, 70s was Earl Warren. Then we had a change. It's a change that the Supreme Court will go through, just like every other institution.
Okay. Swati, I see you nodding your head. You're not for an
Yeah.
We'll go for.
Yeah, I just one.
Sure.
Yeah, one thing. It's one time Ruth Bader Ginsburg was asked this question, and she said exactly the same thing what Farouk ji said. There is no need to increase the numbers because it's a cyclical. Where do we stop then? Because there is nothing in our Constitution that says how many Supreme Court justices we can have. And this came from one of the liberal justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, which I really admire. Yeah,
absolutely. We are at the top of the hour. We could go on for a long period of time, but maybe we can have some concluding remarks. And again, if our viewers have any questions that they would like to pose to our guests, please send them our way. But Swati, why don't we start with you with some concluding remarks from you?
Well, again, thank you, Sanjay, and thank you, USINPAC, for asking me to be on this panel. And I want to say thank you to all my colleagues and my panelists. It's wonderful to hear from all of them and also see them after a long time. I just want to say that it is time for us as leaders and citizens of United States to start working together and start healing our country. Doesn't matter whether we are Republicans or Democrats, whether we are Indian Americans or some other Americans, it's time for us to start working together. We do that with our family. We do that in our own family. We work together and try to do what is best for our family. United States of America is our bigger family, our extended family. And again, I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, first African-American woman and first Indian American woman to be elected as a Vice President of United States. I pray to God that we move forward and start healing as a country.
Thanks, Swati. Farouk, concluding remarks?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear with you. I admire you greatly, and I'll tell you why. When I first came to this country, it was a lonely voice. Just remember that when I came to this country in Washington, D.C., there was only one Indian restaurant. Can you imagine that? And so to have us respected, to have our position recognized, to have our position as a important global player as India is, was something that you elevated to a level that I think is just admirable. And that is something that I'm very grateful to you for. I'm extremely happy that I've had a chance to listen to Swati. I've been involved in fundraising for you over here while you were still in Iowa. Your former governor was my boss at Department of Agriculture, Vilsack, a wonderful man. And Sanjay, we've had some good programs at USDA where you have participated. But I have also been an attorney for more than 40 years for our community, doing pro bono services for Hindus, for Sikhs, for Muslims, for Vietnamese. It didn't matter who it was, for Christians. And I have seen the various types of egregious treatments that some of them have received in different places simply because they are here as an immigrant with a very, very different sounding name. And we have started to change that, and much of that has to be credited to the U.S. India Political Action Committee. I appreciate meeting you again, Steve. Hemant ji, namaskar. I'm happy to make your acquaintance. And I look forward to assisting you in any way possible in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Farook. Hemant, concluding the
thank you, Sanjay. This was a wonderful interaction in the very individual time and indecisive time. And we have all our views, but at the end of the day, we will all work for the Indian American community, or we all will work with the American community, American people. And Farook was bipartisan. The Swati ji and Steve was from one side. I was in minority, but then I think we did a wonderful work here together. And most important thing is I'm the founder and chairman of South Asian Republican Coalition. We are the grassroots level organization for bringing all the South Asian people on one platform. It is a free platform, and we are giving voice. And I never knew, Sanjay, believe me, that there are so many Indian Americans who are Republicans. Earlier, I was not aware that this many people are Republican. With the platform what we have created, we have hundreds and hundreds of people who are with us. And we are in a position to air our views with passion and thoughts, conservatism, religious freedom, the legality, law and order kind of thing. But the one advantage we had by starting this organization is the Trump campaign recognized the grassroots level movement, and that's how this art was represented in the Indian American Voices for Trump Advisory Board. And at the same time, as Swati ji very rightly said, let's look forward, let's work together, how to heal this country. If it at all, there is some issues, but at the end of the day, we all will have some different views. We have to come together and have some common consensus. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Hemant. Thanks. Those are very, very good and positive remarks. Steve, comments from you and about your future in this administration and beyond, a whole range of things, and obviously for Swati too.
Yeah. Well, real quickly, Sanjay, it's been an honor to be here with all of you, and for Ambassador Dandekar and Farook and Hemant and everyone around the country watching this. Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden and Jill Biden, the next First Lady, and Senator Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff and all of their families. I know I grew up in Delaware for a few years, and I know Beau Biden must be walking down with heaven, so happy that his father, after 50 years, is now going to be the 46th president of the United States. And I think moving forward, what I would say to those who voted for President Trump, we have an opportunity now to come together as a country, to focus on getting our country healthy again, with over 235,000 dead from this pandemic. This is a wartime president now, Joe Biden. He's going to have to get our country back together, working for families all across America, get businesses back up and running. Hopefully he'll get on the phone with the 45 leaders he knows around the world soon, as he builds his transition team, to reach out and bring back a coalition-based foreign policy for our country. And I'm hoping and praying that we not only get COVID relief, but with a Republican or Democrat Senate, hopefully Democratic, we can have an immigration system for those that are here legally, addressing border control and illegal immigration, but also protecting the dreamers. Much to come. As President Biden, elect Biden said in North Carolina, in Charlotte in March, America greatness can be defined by one word: possibilities. And the Indian American community of our country defines that every day. And I know somewhere watching on television is a young girl watching Kamala Harris stand by when she takes the oath of office that would say that I could be the president. So for all of us on this call today, on the show, whether we're Republican or Democrat, that is something that we can have tears of joy that our grandchildren, our children could become the president. And I know there's someone out there listening. Maybe they're in the Congress now, but I think it might be a 9 or 10-year-old watching. So thank you so much. And I look forward to being a part of the transition team and working with you to grow our political transformation. And Ambassador, I'll hand it off to you now. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm hoping the word possibilities also applies to you and Swati in terms of being part of this administration. So the possibilities are immense to get Steve and Swati into DC or anywhere else. And really, thank you for a great panel, Farook, Swati, Steve, and Hemant, and for sharing your views. And we will continue the dialogue. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, USINPAC. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.